And, uh, and now let me contrast that with the process industries. Okay, I was having a conversation with the CEO of a major refining company that you would all be familiar with, and I was asking him about. So we were talking about strategy. We were talking about competitive advantage, and he said, George, you know, I'm in the refining business, and we're all the same. You know, I license the same process technology from Shell that my friend, 10 miles away, he has a refinery that he does. We hire the same people. We use about the same assets. We use the same kind of control systems from AspenTech and others. You know, if you look at us, we're exactly the same. There's no difference between my refinery and his, except in one area, and that is how well we do turnarounds. True story. So turnarounds make the difference between an average performer and a great performer. So I asked the next logical question, which was, what the heck is a turnaround? and he said, he laughed like you did. He said, George, every so many years we have to shut the refinery down for 60 days at millions and millions of dollars a day, lost revenue, and that's when we do all our capital improvements, that's when we do all our maintenance work. And I said, okay, well, so what's the big deal? He said, well, 2/3 of our lost time accidents happen during the turnaround period. You're shaking your heads, yes. He said, we've never accomplished what we set out to accomplish. Our wish list is this long, and we get maybe accomplish this. There's way too much uncertainty about the turnaround. We get in there 6 days in, and there's a weather event. And if the weather blows more than 25 miles an hour, our cranes can't do a lift, so we have to push that back and the whole schedule. So we spend 3 years, 36 months planning these turnarounds, and 6 days in, 7 days in, 10 days in, that usually goes out the window. I said, wow, okay, that's an amazing story. There's a competitive advantage sort of laid there to do that well. And I've since had other conversations with a lot of other people across the process industries, and all their stories are similar. That there's no turnarounds that actually work well. And so I started looking at what is the latest thinking in turnaround. So I started studying these conferences and doing research. You know what the latest thinking about how to do turnarounds better? It's instead of planning them, say, 36 months in advance, well, let's plan them 40 months in advance. That was their idea for how to make these turnarounds better. All right, let's set that story aside for a moment. And let's go to professional sports. So I happen to have the honor, the privilege of going to one of their game film reviews. I was invited to look at game films with the team. This is an NFL team. They happened to do particularly well last year. And so I got in there. Big room, about maybe a little bit bigger than this, flat with like round tables. And the running backs would sit at one table, the linebackers would sit at another table, and so forth. And everybody was there. Big screen in the front where they were showing the game films. And assistant coaches would get up. They would kind of talk about the previous game that was played the previous day. They won the game, but barely, agained a pretty weak team. So there was a bit of tension in the room, quite frankly. So they're going through the plays, they're showing the plays, they got them up on the screen, and they could sort of go forward and back really nicely. They got split screens, they got all the stats and everything. So they're looking at all this data, essentially, and the players, very attentively watching all this stuff going on. So they got to a play kind of late in the second quarter. It was a running play. It was a roll right or something they called it. And running back took the ball, and he's rolling to his right, and it was 3rd and 3, I believe. They didn't make the first down. Pretty, in the grand scheme of things, pretty inconsequential, right? That play happens all the time. But that was a very critical play for them. Why, you'll understand here in a minute. So he started asking the running back. He said, what were you thinking about when you were running that play? What were you looking at? Because clearly, you went to the right and here, and if you'd steered a little bit outside, what was going on? And so he got up, and let me tell you, this was fascinating. It wasn't like, you running back, you messed this play up, why did you mess that up? No, they were trying to extract the information out of him to find out why that play went wrong. So he got up and he said, well, I was looking to my right, and I was kind of looking at this guy over here, and he was coming in, and I was watching this sort of linebacker out here, and so I steered this way, a guy got a hold of my leg, and I was trying to break free of him. So he was describing second by second. He memorized that from the previous day. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. But he knew remembered exactly what he was thinking about as this one play was unfolding. So they talked about it. Now, why was this play so significant? The next Sunday, this team was going to play the number one defense in the league. They had 3 players on that team that were hurt. If they were going to play this guy, that was going to be one kind of defense. If they were going to play this other guy, that was going to be another kind of defense, and so on. So the assistant coaches get up and they sort of talk about the play and what can be done to fix it. And they said, okay, this week we're going to run 3 sets of drills. Each matched to the different style of defense that they could be facing. And that's what they did. So they took those game films. The assistant coaches all kind of wrote it up, and they had a drill schedule. They had to double up on the drill schedules, which players didn't really care for, but okay. And then the next game they actually did win the next game. Again, kind of just barely. All right, let's contrast the 2 stories. You got one industry over here that's basically saying, here's a problem, we've never kind of fixed it, and there's just too much uncertainty. What do we do? Nothing we can do. You've got another industry saying, we're going to embrace that uncertainty and actually use that as a competitive advantage. So what we decided to do to sort of help this organization on the turnaround side is to essentially recreate the equivalent of the Monday morning game film. So what if you could reproduce a process plan? What if you could have that turnaround and play that turnaround back day after day and run it? And what if you could introduce a weather event in day 6, that same weather event in day 12, and that same weather event in day 20, and so on? What if you could sort of stress test your whole sort of tactics and how you approach this turnaround, so that when you get to the actual turnaround and you reach a level of uncertainty that comes along, you've already practiced that 50 times before in 50 different ways. So that's the industry sort of thinking about and adopting practices from other industries that are way ahead on the analytics curve and bringing them back into the industry. So that's a trend that you're going to start to see. You're going to see conversations about how does Apple do this? How does Tesla do this? How does GE do this? And see if that can be intelligently adapted. So that's basically point number 1, which is this sort of massive adoption of other things from the industries, from other industries. That's just hasn't been an endemic part